The Nintendo store in New York used to have a legendary Game Boy on display. It wasn't a special edition, but it was one of a kind. A soldier's Game Boy that was burnt to a crisp during Operation Desert Storm. Urban legend said that it somehow survived a bombing, and if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I'd never believe it either. It somehow managed to turn on, somehow able to play Tetris, despite looking like a burnt marshmallow. The world is beautiful, and time repeats itself. Now, instead of a Game Boy that survived a war, there's a Game Boy that's made for war, emblazoned with the logo of an arms manufacturer, and made from the materials that they use to make drones. Oh, and this one comes with Tetris too! I used to work at GameStop, so I am intimately familiar with this rabbit. Buck the Bunny. He is GameStop's on-again, off-again mascot, but now he's got his own game. Released in 2025, Buck and the Cursed Cartridge is a platformer starring GameStop's beloved mascot, compatible with the Game Boy Color. Am I reading this right? The Game Boy Color? Such a wild concept was so alluring that I had to have it, and I immediately ordered it off of GameStop's website. When it arrived, I unboxed it and was delighted to find a cartridge reminiscent of the ones from my childhood, but white instead of gray, and emblazoned with a Modretro logo instead of Game Boy. So what's Modretro? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, okay? Let me keep gushing at the bunny game for just a little bit longer, okay? Buck and the Cursed Cartridge is a cute little love letter to gaming and the GameStop mascot. Buck travels through various game staple worlds, like a green hill, a desert, and a snow world, to name just a few. By giving the bunny a gun, it sort of plays like Mario meets Mega Man, with a little bit of edgy humor sprinkled in. This game is a passion project by Play Instinct, a German game developer that's been making Game Boy games since 2023. But how did this solo indie developer get a cartridge onto store shelves at GameStop? Well, now it's time to talk about Modretro. Hot off the heels of Analog's Pocket System, designed to play Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, and a handful of other titles, fledgling company Modretro wanted to bring retro handhelds to the masses too, with the Modretro Chromatic. Unlike the Analog Pocket's wide variety of compatible titles, Modretro made the Chromatic much more focused. It was essentially a Game Boy Color with a backlit screen and a metal case. It didn't support anything beyond the square carts that we know and love. In interviews, Modretro team members say, what if the Game Boy was designed in a world where cost wasn't an object? And that mentality makes sense once you get your hands on the device. This thing feels laser focused on being a premium, authentic experience. Its backlit screen matches the original Game Boy's pixel count perfectly, meaning that there's no odd resolution stretching, and it intends to match the colors as you remembered them as well. My childhood Game Boy lens was covered in scratches, but since the Chromatic's lens comes in Gorilla Glass or Sapphire, there's no need to worry about that. The Modretro team has stated in multiple interviews that the only thing harder than Sapphire is diamond, and most folks don't carry around diamonds in their pocket, do they? Keeping with the theme of being close to the original, this bad boy runs on AA batteries, with a rechargeable option being sold separately. Seems like an odd choice to make this a la carte, especially since this battery is sold out and they still haven't restocked it yet! But at least if you've got normal rechargeable AA's, you can use those. The battery isn't the only swappable element though. There's a $15 mod kit on their site that comes with parts that are easily swappable. Multiple colors of buttons, membranes to adjust the stiffness of your button presses, different types of D-pads, and a handful of other goodies, along with all the tools that you need to put it together. Considering the costs that I've seen for similar parts to customize the original Game Boy, this is a steal. Despite its retro stylings, the Modretro Chromatic does have a handful of modern features that make for a neat device. It can connect to the computer via its USB-C port to output its display to a bigger screen, or even update its games. That's right, the game carts made for the Modretro Chromatic can be patched. Oh yeah, did I mention that Modretro has been releasing their own games too? Each Chromatic system comes bundled with Modretro's new version of Tetris. It includes color and a handful of modern quality of life improvements, including the hold system and using modern block colors, because that's actually really important to me as a Tetris nerd. Oh, plus this game works on the original Game Boy Color too. In fact, Modretro didn't just stop at re-releasing Tetris. They re-released a handful of other retro classics, some of which were improved versions of the original. One of those re-releases is Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, Zapped. Well, it seems odd that of all the games out there to re-release, they'd pick a licensed title from the early aughts. I actually think it was a great find. Zapped was by WayForward, the team behind Shantae, and this game's excellent platforming and gorgeous sprite work makes the connection between games really obvious. Out of curiosity, I grabbed the Modretro re-release and the original. The games are near identical, save for a few strictly cosmetic differences. The cartridge is pink, and the game's intros changed a bit. There's fewer logos, no ad for the Archie comic site, and the original says that I'm not allowed to perform it. It's for private use only. Oh wait, does this video count as a performance? Wait, no, don't harass me, I swear, I'm not. Modretro's Rayman does a little bit more. Original releases of Rayman for the Game Boy Color used passwords to save instead of using a battery for built-in saves. Seems a little silly that old games cut saves to save money on cartridges. Thankfully, the modern re-release of Rayman from Modretro cuts the need for passwords and offers proper saves. One thing to note is that Buck and the Cursed Cartridge was not in the Game Boy Color's original library. Buck was introduced in the late 2000s, making him more of a DS sort of fella. This game isn't a re-release, it's a release. Modretro worked with a dozen Game Boy developers so they could publish their titles on Chromatic as well, even getting some of their games on store shelves at GameStop. Titles like Patchy Matchy, a surfing dog puzzle game, Chanty, a pirate rhythm adventure, and Dragonheim, a new RPG for the GBC, are just a few of the original games by indie devs that Modretro helped publish. It's incredibly cool getting to see new games coming out that'll work on a console from my childhood, and it seems like the developers of these games had positive experiences publishing with Modretro. Plus, with Modretro's upcoming M64, a console intended to play Nintendo 64 games, the team has stated that they have plans to release original N64 compatible titles as well. But I have to wonder, game publishing isn't a cheap venture, especially when manufacturing cartridges is involved. Plus, how many people out there are going to want to drop $200 to $300 on a new Game Boy, or $45 on a new Game Boy game? Where is the money coming from to make this happen? It is a risky venture that might not even be profitable. The answer? It wasn't even made to make money. It's actually losing money. It is a passion project founded by a billionaire making it out of his love for retro gaming. Recognize this room? If you do, quit cuddling your body pillow, take your headset off, and go touch some grass. If you've ever felt the touch of another human being, you probably don't know that this is VR chat, and that we probably wouldn't have this without Palmer Luckey. Luckey is the founder of Oculus, one of the most influential pioneers in modern VR. It all started in 2009 when he was 16. He noticed that existing VR headsets weren't living up to their potential, so he wanted to make his own. Within a year of tinkering in his parents' garage, he'd finished his first prototype display. The beginning of a new era of VR. Now here's a fun fact for you. Did you know that one of Oculus's first employees was a mod on Palmer Luckey's forum? Before he started his work in VR, Luckey was a huge fan of tinkering with his retro consoles, being one of the first recorded folks to add a backlit screen to a Game Boy. He started a forum for folks like him to discuss their projects in modding retro systems. Modretro. That's right, Modretro actually predates Oculus. His modern Game Boy company owes its name to the mid-2000s modding forum. Luckey's work on Oculus got him loads of attention, including John Carmack of Doom fame and Gabe Newell, inventor of the Steam sale. With names like that behind the tech, Oculus was able to launch a successful Kickstarter in 2012 for the Oculus Rift DK1, a tinkering kit for VR enthusiasts. Before even releasing their first consumer product in 2014, Oculus was purchased by Facebook, now Meta, in a $2 billion deal, making Luckey a millionaire, if not a billionaire, at just 21 years old. He remained with the Oculus team through 2016 with the launch of the Oculus Rift, one of the first widely adopted pieces of consumer VR, and continued to work on VR hardware until 2017 when he left Facebook. Oh, but it wasn't willingly. Luckey alleges that after making a large political donation, Facebook leadership didn't agree with his choice and forced him from the company. While Zuckerberg and other Facebook execs stated in 2018 that Palmer wasn't fired for any political views, Luckey strongly believes that he was. Even though he was forced from Facebook, he was able to leave with a significant amount of money, enough to live like a king for the rest of his days. This guy has been able to afford to buy a decommissioned nuclear missile silo to store his video game collection. He has a 30,000-liter aquarium that once housed a pet shark, and he collects a smattering of old war equipment like helicopters and submarines. His obsession with these kinds of machines extends just beyond the old, though. Instead of just comfortably living off his Oculus money until the end of his days, he funded Anduril, a weapons manufacturer. Now, I'm gonna be real. The remainder of this video is gonna be spicy. All I ask is that you go into the rest of this with an open mind and understand that I'm approaching this in good faith after literal months of research. I have spent hours watching interviews about this guy talking about building weapons while he's dressed in Pokemon shirts, and I need to talk to somebody about it. In one interview, Luckey stated that he's like Tony Stark, but with one key difference. Stark Industries stopped building weapons, and he doesn't plan to stop. Keeping the pop culture references going, Anduril's name comes from The Lord of the Rings. The name is borrowed from Aragorn's sword, meaning Flame of the West, which is surprisingly fitting for a Western company developing firepower. A lot of Luckey's planning around Anduril's projects comes from an internal strategy called China 27. The idea that the US should be ready if China invaded Taiwan in 2027. Taiwan is the heart of chip manufacturing, and if it were to be taken over by a foreign power, it could cause disaster for the entire world. Everything's computer. PCs, phones, tablets, cars, and even game consoles need these microchips, and if we lost a source for those, countless industries could suffer. It's also important to realize that if the US were to go to war with China, American forces would be seriously outmanned, with China having a population 4 times the size of the US. That is likely a factor in why a lot of Anduril's tech is self-piloting unmanned drones. Anduril's drones have been used to assist Ukraine in their conflict with Russia, and as a result, it's likely that fewer American troops were needed on the ground to fight out there. Anduril's not just making flying drones, though. They're making systems to take down enemy drones, building unmanned aquatic crafts, and even developing AR headsets to help troops on the ground. They've expanded into all kinds of tech built for war, but believe it or not, in interviews, Luckey has stated that his goal is to save the US taxpayer money. Unlike other arms manufacturers contracted by the US government, Anduril calls himself a products company, which means that the US taxpayer isn't footing the bill for the research and development that goes into this weaponry, only purchasing the final product. All of that R&D is funded by private investors, saving US citizens billions in tax dollars. In a perfect world, this could be the best case scenario for weapons manufacturing. Anduril is set on protecting Taiwan and the tech industry at large, relying less on endangering soldiers and more on tech, and saving the American taxpayer money. There's always going to be demand for weapons, and the best ones should be developed for the good guys, right? However, we don't live in a perfect world, and all the points above could just be PR speak to make a weapons company seem more palatable to a general audience. Not to mention, is the US really the good guy right now? Seeing how this country's leadership is treating the people on its own soil, it's hard to trust anyone in power to do the right thing with weapons like these. Speaking of people in power, remember that donation that allegedly got Luckey fired from Facebook? That was $9,000 that funded an anti-Hillary billboard during the 2016 election. Palmer Luckey has not been shy about his support of Donald Trump, bragging on the Joe Rogan show about showing support for him running for president as early as 2009, when he was 15. While the mission seemed cool at first, realizing who Luckey is building these weapons for and who he's a fan of really puts a sour taste in my mouth. But hey, these are separate projects, right? Most folks like myself didn't even know about the connection between Modretro and Anduril. It took a bit of research to uncover this for a while, but now it's out in the open. Luckey has co-mingled the brands with the release of the Anduril Edition Modretro Chromatic. The limited edition system is made out of the same materials as Anduril's attack drones, a magnesium aluminum alloy with a ceramic polymer finish. It's even styled like one of their drones, with engravings and etchings across the system. Labels adorn every corner as if it were a weapon, such as the volume label being labeled thrust, or the cartridge slot being labeled insert payload here. Top it off with the headphones and charm being emblazoned with the Anduril logo, and this very much comes off as a vanity project. It's a system beyond parody that serves as Luckey's cheeky reminder of, hey, I made both these things. The Modretro Chromatic is probably one of my favorite handhelds that I've had in years, and it painstakingly tiptoes the line of feeling premium, retro, and authentic perfectly. It just sucks that it has to come from someone like this! That said, whether you want to embrace or avoid this project is up to you. What do you think? Is this still something that you'd want to avoid on principle, or would you pick up a Modretro project guiltlessly? Let me know in the comments. So, I'm not the only one who thinks it's weird they gave the GameStop bunny a gun, right?